Hi and welcome back to my channel. So, how am I getting on with the Soul? So first of all, it's a Kia Soul. It's the first edition. It's a 64 kilowatt hour battery and it has 201 brake horsepower and about 395 newton meters of torque. It's quite nippy. It's certainly quicker than the MG ZS EV I had before it. Only slightly, because it's a lot heavier. This weighs about 1800 kilos as opposed to the MG's 1500. Despite having a lot more power and more torque, it's only slightly faster. It does the 0 to 62 in about 7.9 seconds or something officially. What do I think? I've had the car now for 3.5 weeks and I've done just under 2,000 miles in it. So let's start outside, the looks. I know it's not to everyone's tastes, but I like it. It doesn't look like any other SUV out there. It is distinctive. I like the sculptured bonnet groove and the similar ones on the front wings, which go into the doors. I really like the red and the white combination, and the white bits remind me of an upside down surfboard, which then reminds me of the Boardmaster's concept Soul EV, which was released in August this year, 2021. That's quite an interesting car with a 3-inch lift and big wheels and tyres. It looks the business. Not sure about the roof rack or the interior, but I certainly like the wheels and the lift kit on it. But then my previous 4-wheel drive vehicle was a Land Rover Freelander, which also I had lifted and had bigger wheels on it, so that's just a personal thing. The red roof. Lipstick red is what it was called by one of my friends. Yep, roof and mirrors help with the distinctive looks. The smooth no-grill front end with the Stormtrooper twin dipped and twin full beam LEDs with the front LED indicators and fog lights. It's quite distinctive. And then there is that side hinged front charge port cover with caps which have handles in it, so you can actually pull them out quite easily. Not only that, when it's dark there is a light. Plus there are 3 lights on the dash at the bottom of the windscreen, so you can see when the car is charging and how much the car is charged by. Yes, it's very boxy, but I'll come to that later. The rear end is very distinctive with the wraparound LED and the brake lights. The reversing lights were very poor, so they've been upgraded to LEDs so I can see when I reverse onto my driveway at night. I covered that in another video. The indicators are also standard bulbs and I've not upgraded them at the rear. So to finish the outside, the windows are heat UV resistant glass and privacy glass behind the driver. That means that the car stays a lot cooler in very hot weather, and I've really noticed that over the last few days when we had the really hot weather, that getting back inside the car, despite it being really hot, it wasn't as hot as I've had in previous cars. The roof has flush roof rails and I am going to be getting some roof bars to go across. There are also sculptured panels in the roof and a shark fin aerial to finish it off. So overall the car is definitely distinctive. It stands out in a car park and I like it. It's quite exclusive. There aren't that many in the UK at the moment. They only released the electric version in the UK and Europe because in the last year or so of production of the original Soul EV, the electric ones outsold the petrol and diesel ones, so they decided to just launch it with electric. The first edition was the first run, and it's been out for nearly 2 years. Now they're taking orders for something called the Max, MAXX, and that is slightly different to this first edition. It doesn't have the head-up display, it doesn't have a heat pump, and there's one or two other things it doesn't have that I can't remember off the top of my head. It's still an excellent vehicle, and it's still a very good price new, which comes in underneath the limit of 35,000. I went for the first edition because it was fully loaded and could only really be compared with the Kia e-Niro 4 Plus because it had the same spec pretty much, but the 4 Plus was costing around 40 grand new. It was also several thousand more expensive than this one. I bought this one 18 months old with 14,000 on the clock. There's a nice touch under the bonnet in that it is held up with gas struts, which after having had to use a prop to hold it up on my last few cars is a very nice little feature. Under the bonnet there is enough room for a frunk, and I've ordered one and it's arrived and I've fitted it. Before we go inside, the rear suspension is independent. This makes quite a big difference to the ride and handling when driving. The underside of the car is smooth. There's not very many holes underneath. This helps with efficiency. The wheels are also shaped for efficiency reasons as well. And the car has been very efficient. I'm not convinced about the grey or silvery side bits to the car at the front or at the back. Okay, let's get this boot thing out of the way. Yes, the boot is small. It's 315 litres in the boot raised position and underneath the parcel shelf. There is lots of space underneath the boot when it's set at the high level. Plenty enough room for my telescopic ladder and loads of other bits and pieces that I keep in the boot, plus a skinny spare wheel. The car comes with the gunge. The rear parcel shelf is quite nifty. It doesn't go up and down with the boot, so it hinges at the back, it clips in the middle, and it hinges in the middle as well. There's a boot light on the near side which I've upgraded to LED, and also there is an area which looks like on other markets it has a 12 volt auxiliary point, but it doesn't have it on the UK models, which is a shame. The rear seats have plenty of leg and headroom, lots of space. There isn't much thigh support, but very few cars these days seem to have thigh support, especially EVs, because the seat floor seems to be quite high. There's a central light in the back of the car, so you can see in the back of the car for putting in seat belts and that sort of thing. And also there is a central at the bottom behind the front storage compartment, single USB-A socket. The rear seat split 60-40, with the 40 being behind the driver and the 60 being behind the passenger. I've managed to get a full-size door in the car but with no passengers in the car. The passenger seat has a map pocket, but the driver's one doesn't. There are 3 headrests to the rear, and there are 2 ISOFIX points for children's seats in the rear seats. There are door bins, and you can just about fit a 500 millilitre bottle in each pocket. Moving on to the front passenger side, the seat has no height adjustment and only backwards and forwards and rake for the seat back, though it is quite comfortable, and I have been in the passenger seat quite a bit as my wife has driven the car. There is a decent sized glove box and a door bin and a switchable passenger airbag as usual. Now to the cockpit. The driver's seat has 8-way adjustable settings, so that's up and down at the front, at the back, and forwards and backwards, and seat backwards rake plus lumbar support, which makes a big difference for me. But once again, there are no memory settings. I'm surprised how many cars these days come with electric seats and no memory settings. Just doesn't make sense to me. The steering wheel has rake and reach, so with the seat it's easy to get a comfortable position. There are a lot of buttons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on the left hand side of the multifunction steering wheel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on the right hand side of the steering wheel. That is 18 buttons on the steering wheel, plus the horn, plus the regen paddles, plus the indicator switch and the wiper control. Then you've got the little panel down on the right with the VES, they call it, which is the sound generator system. You've got the traction control, you've got your head-up display, you've got your lane keep assist, you've got your blind spot detect, the dash lights fade up and down, and then you've got your headlight adjustment. Above that you've got your speaker and your air vents. Being a slightly funky car, they're actually shaped a bit like a speaker side on, so I quite like that. It's got the usual door mirror controls, and it's got a sliding switch for either left or right, plus the power fold mirrors, which you can power fold them in by the switch, or when you lock the car they fold in automatically. Then you've got the usual 4 electric windows with the 2 at the back. Oh, and the windows go all the way down at the back. Moving on to the dash, you've got 10.25-inch infotainment system with the built-in navigation and the media and all the EV stuff, which is brilliant. And then you've got the automatic climate control with the LED display in the middle, and that's also very good. And it's also, being the Hyundai Kia range, it has the driver only position, so if you want to save energy you can just hit that and just keep the driver's area cool or warm. And then underneath that you've got the 12-volt auxiliary, which is where I've plugged my dash cam into at the moment. Then you've got a central USB, which is where you connect to Apple CarPlay. Then next to that you've got the key light for the wireless charging, and next to that you've got another USB socket. Then coming backwards you've got the gear selector in the middle with your park button, and it's all very nice. It feels really nice. A nice serrated edge to the control, nice, easy to grip. All lights up beautifully, and you can change the colours of the ring around the gear selector. And then you've got your reverse neutral drive by just turning it left or right. You've got your start stop, you've got your heated seats, you've got heated steering wheel, the park sensors which you can turn the noise off, you've got auto hold, and you've got drive mode. And then at the back you've got your electric parking brake. Now drive modes, you've got 4 modes: Sport, Normal, Eco, Eco Plus. Eco Plus is accessed when you're in Eco and you press and hold the mode button, and that will bring up Eco Plus, which turns off climate control and just dulls the throttle a bit to make it harder to go fast, and I think it might even put a speed limit on the car. I've never driven in it, so I don't actually know. That's just what I think I read about. In Eco you can put a speed limit in. I've set it up to 60 at the moment, and it reduces the amount of energy used by the climate control, and you can also program which level of regenerative power in the braking you want, whether it's 0, 1, 2 or 3. And Normal and Sport are also programmable too. It's actually very well laid out. Regenerative braking, as I mentioned a moment ago, it's got 4 levels. 0, which is coasting, so it doesn't produce any regenerative braking whatsoever. Then you got levels 1, 2 and 3. All very good. I use a mix depending on the road situation. It's also got an auto feature, which is great when you're in traffic. It's not so great when you're on windy roads, because it will coast. It's supposed to react to going up and down, but it doesn't seem to react to going round bends. Because they're flappy paddles, it's a bit like going up and down the gearbox in a flappy paddle equipped car. And I had a Skoda Yeti many years ago, which I fitted a multi-function steering wheel with flappy paddles from a VRS, because it was a DSG gearbox I had, and that was great for going up and down the gearbox. This is just the same, only the paddles are much better, and they look so much better in the silver, and they feel just really nice and solid. Everything on the car feels quality. It's a real step up from my last car, but there again, you're talking about a car that costs another £10,000-12,000 more when new. So you would expect it to be more expensive and feel better quality. There is a 10-speaker Harman Kardon. In fact, I think there's more than that. There's 2 in each door, so that's 8. There's 2 in the boot, that's 10. And there's 3 at the front. 1 on the left, 1 on the right, and 1 in the middle. So there's 13 speakers. So it's a 13-speaker Harman Kardon system, and it is very good. I'm very impressed with the sound quality. And it's got a graphic equalizer, so and it, as standard, is very bass heavy. So you can dial that down or out if you want to. On foreign market ones, when I say foreign market, I mean non-UK markets, they get pulsating lights when it's dark and the music is on. Very flash, but the UK version doesn't get it. There is a sunglasses holder, map and reading lights, and there's an SOS button as well up here. There's a microphone somewhere up there as well. The hands-free car phone system seems to work very well, as does Apple CarPlay. Can't speak for Android Auto because I don't use it. But Apple CarPlay uses the full screen. I believe Android Auto, with the latest firmware, uses 2/3 of the screen, and the final third you can use for swiping up through battery and time and map and other stuff. It's a very responsive, and I'm very impressed with the, as I said earlier, with the sat nav. It's got live traffic, and it is live. It's very much like TomTom. In fact, it might even use the TomTom traffic. It's very good. And it suggests routes for you, and they're pretty good routing as well. I mentioned a couple of times the head-up display, which is great. It's totally programmable. The size of the current speed. It will also display the speed of limit of the road, whether lane keep assist is on or whether the automatic cruise control is on. If it is, it'll show you the distance between you and the vehicle in front that you've selected. If you've got the speed limit function on, it'll tell you what the speed limit it is set to is on, and a little dial, and it also gives you nav directions, which is great, so you can just keep your eyes pretty much on the road the whole time. The instrument cluster is a good digital display. On the left it shows you the range you got left, and there's also an 18 segment display showing the battery state. And then you've got a programmable section in the middle, a programmable user selectable section in the middle with various different settings, like economy, current journey, accumulated totals, or nav directions. And then there are various settings that you can use, but there are lots of other useful things, like if you're going to be sitting in the car for a little while or want to sleep in the car and want to have the heating or air conditioning on, there's something called utility mode, which basically means that the car will run everything off the high voltage battery and keep the 12-volt battery topped up, so you won't flatten the 12-volt battery if you're just sitting in a car park for an hour waiting for your children to come out swimming or whatever it is, or your wife has gone or partner's gone shopping and you're sitting in the car just waiting. So that's very good. But there's lots of other bits and pieces that you can program. It's a highly programmable car, which I really, really like. There are a few odd things, like if you like to use auto hold, you have to switch it on every time you start the car. That's annoying. And also lane keep assist, you have to turn it off every time you start the car. Otherwise it will buzz you, beep you, and possibly try and take you back into lane, depending on how you've programmed it. That I don't like, because where I live there's lots of small country lanes and it's very difficult to stay on your side of the white line because the roads are so narrow. So I tend to turn it off as soon as I get in the car. When I'm putting my seatbelt on, I hit the lane control, lane keep assist button off. It still works fine when you're on dual carriageways or motorways where you're using the automatic cruise control, the ACC. They may call it, Kia may call it something different, but that's basically what it is, which adjusts your speed So when you're coming up on the motorway, you're doing whatever, say you're doing 70, there's a lorry in front of you doing 60, the car will slow down and keep a good distance away from the vehicle in front. You indicate, the car will then start to accelerate as you move out and change lanes back up to the 70 miles an hour that you programmed it to, or whatever the speed of the car is that you're pulling out behind. So it's very good. The lane keep assist is very good. I've been impressed with it so far. I've used it quite a lot. We've done quite a lot of long distance journeys. When I say long distance, I haven't done any rapid charging away from home yet because I haven't driven any further than 250 miles in a day. Went down to Fully Charged Live last weekend, and that was 250 miles round trip, and we arrived home with about 30 miles left, which actually is pretty impressive because that's pretty close to the WLTP figure of the car. So yeah, economy, the car is very good. It's very efficient, especially at lower speeds. If you keep the speed down to 60 miles an hour, I'm regularly seeing sort of 4.5, 4.6, 4.7. I've seen it up to the fives on parts of the journey, but when the journey starts to get bumpy, hilly, then it starts to drop down a little bit. But at this weather, 14 to 20 degrees, I'm getting 270 to 290 mile range easily. So much so that I very rarely charge to 100%. As you know, I've got solar panels on the house, so when it's sunny I will plug the car in when I get home and use that. So yesterday, for instance, it was nice and sunny. There were a few clouds around, and I managed to squeeze 11 kilowatts into the car. I will, because it's got such a big battery, I don't need all the range every day. If I need to, I will put the car on charge for 4 hours overnight on Octopus Go, and that will put in about 28 kilowatt hours of, which is good for about 110, 120 miles, which is pretty good because that cost me £1.40. And unless I need the full range, I will then do the same the following night, just keep it topped up just doing 4 hours a night to keep it on the cheap rate. Otherwise I have to pay 14p rather than 5p a kilowatt hour. The car is great to drive. It just feels planted on the road. The suspension just works. It's a dream to drive. It's really comfortable over long distances. I'm really happy with it. I'm glad I made the choice to move over to the Kia. I did think about the Kia e-Niro, but it's quite bland in its looks. I know some people will prefer that to the Soul, but everybody's different, thankfully. I prefer the more Marmite looks of the Soul. It makes me smile when I'm driving the car, and it's just fun. It's not a sports car. However, it does handle surprisingly well. The turn-in feels really great, despite it being on the original horrible Nexon tyres, which will spin even at 30 miles an hour if you put your foot down. So you have to be careful, especially in the wet. I plan on putting Michelin Cross Climate 2 tyres on the car at some point in the not too distant future. The lights are very good, the full LED lights at the front. They are brilliant at night. I'm really impressed with those. Back to driving it. The driving position is great. It's nice and high. It's a nice upright seated position. You can get yourself really comfortable in the chair with good thigh support. The steering wheel feels really good to hold. It's good quality material. And everything just feels in the right place. There's blind spots, as there are in most cars, to the rear three quarters, the rear C pillars. It's difficult to see past those, but it has blind spot detection on it for when you're overtaking, which is brilliant, or when you want to overtake, which is brilliant. It's got rear cross traffic alert, so when you're trying to reverse out of a parking spot or the like, or off your drive, it will tell you if there's somebody approaching. Again, which is great. It's got all the safety features you want. Automatic emergency braking for pedestrians and cyclists, all the normal stuff that you get on modern cars these days. Oh yes, and finally, there is an app. It's called UVO. and it's in its latest iteration. I've never used the previous one. It's very good. I've almost always managed to get the car to respond to my requests. I can lock it, I can unlock it, I can turn on the heating or air conditioning, and I can select the temperature I want. It'll tell me the charge, which reminds me, on the infotainment system, it will tell you the battery's state of charge and the range as well. There's lots of energy information available in the car. Back to the app, so you can check the status of the car, which is great, very easy to do, and it'll tell you how many miles it'll do and the battery percentage in the app. And there's a few other bits and pieces that you can do as well. You can turn on the heated steering wheel. It's not a heated windscreen, but it'll put the fan onto the windscreen and heat that up so it defrosts, and it will also defrost the mirrors and the rear window, so you can get into a nice toasty car in cold weather. So would I recommend one? Absolutely. It's my favourite of all the EVs I've owned so far. So there you have it. That is the Soul EV, and very impressed. So thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, as it helps build the channel, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon. Bye.